She chose the corner table because it faced the window and not the room. Because if she sat with her back to the people, they would forget to stare. Because if she sat near the glass, the light would fall on her plate instead of her legs. Because today, of all days, she didn't have the strength to explain herself to strangers. The crutches rested against the chair, metal cold against wood, angled carefully so they wouldn't slide and crash to the floor. That sound always came with looks, pity looks, curious looks, the kind that made her feel smaller than the injury ever did. She adjusted her balance slowly, lowering herself into the seat with practiced precision. Every movement had become deliberate since the accident. Nothing was casual anymore. Nothing could be. The cafe hummed around her, soft clinks of cutlery, low conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine. Life happening effortlessly for everyone else. She exhaled through her nose and opened the menu, even though she already knew what she'd order. Soup. Something easy. Something that didn't require too much reaching or shifting. Lunch in peace. That was all she wanted. Not attention. Not kindness. Not a reminder that her body had betrayed her. Just one quiet meal. Outside, the city moved like it always did. Cars passed. People crossed the street. A woman laughed into her phone. A man tugged a child along by the hand. Normal. Untouched. She watched them like someone observing a life she used to belong to. The waiter approached, young, nervous, his eyes darting briefly, too briefly, toward the crutches. "What can I get you?" he asked, voice polite, careful. "Tomato soup and water, please." He nodded quickly and left, relief visible in the speed of his retreat. She set the menu down and folded her hands in her lap. Her fingers shook, just slightly. She hated that. The accident had taken enough from her already. She refused to let it take her composure too. She focused on her breathing, on the warmth of the sunlight, on the faint smell of baked bread drifting from the counter. Then she felt it. That sensation, the one that prickled at the back of her neck, being watched. She didn't look up immediately. Experience had taught her that sometimes the feeling passed. Sometimes it was nothing more than her own nerves. But this time, it didn't fade. It settled. She lifted her gaze, slow and controlled, and that's when she saw them. A man and a little girl, standing a few steps inside the cafe. They hadn't noticed her yet, or maybe they had, and were pretending not to. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed simply but expensively, in a way that didn't try to impress. No logos, no flash, just clean lines and quiet confidence. His hair was neatly styled, his posture relaxed, but there was an alertness in his eyes that suggested a life of decisions, of responsibility. The little girl stood close to his side, holding his hand with both of hers. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8. Brown hair pulled back neatly, blue dress, shoes polished enough to catch the light. Her eyes, though, those were different. They weren't distracted like most children's. They were searching. The man leaned down slightly, speaking to her in a low voice Anna couldn't hear. The girl nodded, then scanned the cafe. And then her eyes landed on the crutches. On the chair. On her. The girl's face changed instantly. Not with fear, not with discomfort, but with something open and unguarded. Curiosity. Pure and uncomplicated. Anna's stomach tightened. Here it comes, she thought. The questions. The whispers. The pointing. She looked away first, fixing her attention on the condensation forming on her water glass as the waiter returned and placed it gently in front of her. "Soup will be right out," he said. "Thank you." She wrapped her hands around the glass, letting the cold ground her. Then she heard footsteps, small ones, stopping near her table. Her jaw tensed. "Excuse me," a small voice said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't demanding. It was polite. Careful. Like the child had practiced the word. Anna closed her eyes for half a second before opening them and turning toward the voice. The girl stood there, looking up at her with earnest eyes. "Yes," Anna said, keeping her tone neutral. The girl glanced briefly at the crutches, then back to her face. "Do they hurt?" she asked. The question landed softly, without malice. Still, it stung. Sometimes, Anna replied honestly. The girl nodded, absorbing this. I fell off my bike once, she said. I scraped my knee. I cried a lot. A faint smile tugged at the corner of Anna's mouth before she could stop it. That sounds painful, Anna said. The girl smiled, satisfied. Then a shadow moved behind her. The man stepped forward quickly. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice calm but firm. She shouldn't bother you. It's okay, Anna said automatically. The man's eyes met hers for the first time, and something shifted. They were a striking shade of green, sharp but not cold, intelligent, observant. They didn't slide away from her crutches. They didn't linger on them either. They stayed on her face. I'm Daniel, he said, and this is my daughter Lily. Lily beamed. I'm Lily, she repeated, as if Anna might have missed it. Anna hesitated. Names felt personal these days. But Lily was still watching her with such uncomplicated interest that refusing felt cruel. I'm Anna, she said. Daniel nodded once, as though committing the name to memory. We were just getting lunch, he said, gesturing lightly toward the counter. But if you'd prefer privacy, I can. It's fine, Anna said again, firmer this time. Lily shifted her weight. Daddy, she said, tugging his hand. Can I ask her something? Daniel looked down at her, then back at Anna. Only if she says yes. The cafe seemed to fade slightly, the background noise dulling as if the moment had narrowed to the three of them. What do you want to ask? Anna said. Lily's face brightened. She pointed, not at the crutches, not at Anna, but at the faded graphic on Anna's green t-shirt. A dog's face stared back. Goofy and loyal. Do you like dogs? Lily asked. The question caught Anna completely off guard. Not what happened to you, not will you walk again, not does it hurt a lot, just that. Anna blinked once, then she laughed. It surprised her how real the sound was. I love dogs, she said. I have one. Or, I did. Lily's eyes widened. Really? What's their name? Max. What kind? Golden Retriever. Too friendly for his own good. Lily giggled. Daddy says golden retrievers are happiness with fur. Daniel smiled faintly, but his eyes remained on Anna. Something thoughtful crossed his face. Can we sit with her? Lily asked quickly, as if afraid the chance might vanish. Daniel hesitated. Anna could see it. The instinct to protect, to avoid imposing, to respect boundaries. She felt her own instinct rise too, to say no, to reclaim the quiet lunch, to not become a moment. But Lily was still waiting, hopeful, open, and something inside Anna, something she thought had hardened since the accident, softened. If you want, Anna said. Daniel studied her for a brief second, then nodded. Thank you, he said sincerely. They pulled chairs from the adjacent table, arranging them carefully so Lily could sit across from Anna. The waiter returned with the soup, pausing at the new arrangement. Everything okay here? Yes, Anna said. Daniel ordered for himself and Lily, voice low and efficient. As the waiter left, Lily leaned forward. Max must miss you, she said. Anna swallowed. He does, she admitted. I miss him too. Why don't you see him? Lily asked. Anna looked down at her soup, steam curling upward. Because I can't walk him right now. Lily frowned, thinking hard. Well, she said finally, maybe he can walk you when you're better. Warmth spread through Anna's chest. Unexpected. Welcome. Daniel watched quietly. There was something in his expression now. Recognition. Anna lifted her spoon and took a careful bite. It tasted better than she expected. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, something subtle had begun to change. Anna had no idea that this small conversation, this simple question about dogs, was about to alter the course of her life. The cafe door opened again, letting in a rush of cold air and noise. But Anna barely noticed. Because for the first time since the accident, she wasn't counting the minutes until she could leave. She was present. She was seen. And she was no longer eating alone. Do you like dogs? The question hung between them, light and innocent. Yet Emma felt it land somewhere deeper than it should have. She glanced at Lily first, then back at Daniel, then down at the cartoon face on her shirt, as if it might somehow guide her answer. "Yes," she said finally. "I do. A lot." Lily's face lit up, as if Emma had just passed an invisible test. "I knew it," she said proudly, turning toward her father. "People who like dogs are usually nice." Daniel released a quiet breath that might have been a laugh. "That's your research?" "It's science," Lily replied with complete confidence. Emma smiled again, something loosening in her chest. She hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding herself together until that moment. "I used to have one," Emma added, her voice softer now. "Before." "Before your leg?" Lily asked, gentler this time. "Yes," Emma said. "Before that." The word carried weight she didn't allow to show. Daniel noticed anyway. She could tell by the way his eyes didn't push, didn't pry, just waited. Respectful. Still. "What kind?" Lily asked. "A mixed one," Emma said. "Big ears, too much energy. Thought every stranger was his best friend." "That's the best kind," Lily declared. "We can't have one." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "We've discussed this." "We have," Lily agreed, "and we will again." Emma chuckled, then caught herself. She hadn't laughed like that in weeks. Unguarded, quick, real. It surprised her enough that she looked back down at her soup, stirring it, though it didn't need it. Outside, a cloud slid across the sun, dimming the cafe for a moment. The light shifted, and with it, something at the table changed too. Emma felt it, subtle, almost imperceptible. The ease thinning, the world creeping back in. Daniel took a sip of his coffee. "If you don't mind me asking," he said carefully, "are you comfortable sitting here? We don't want to interrupt your lunch." It was an out, a clean one, a way back to solitude without making her feel rude for taking it. She considered it. The truth was, she'd come here for quiet, for invisibility, but somehow, against her expectations, she didn't feel invaded. She felt present, seen, without being examined. "I'm okay," she said. "Really." Daniel nodded once, accepting the answer without pressing further. The cafe door opened again, letting in a rush of cold air and a pair of men in dark coats. One of them spotted Daniel immediately. Emma noticed the shift before he did. The way the man's posture straightened, the way his companion leaned in to whisper. "Is that?" the man began, too loudly. Daniel didn't look up. He didn't need to. Emma saw his jaw tighten just slightly. The men hesitated, then turned toward the counter, pretending not to stare. Lily followed Emma's gaze and frowned. "Daddy, they're looking at you." Daniel leaned closer to his daughter. "Sometimes people think they recognize me," he said calmly. "It's not important." The weight of confirmation settled in Emma's stomach. Billionaire CEO. The words hadn't been spoken, but they hovered now, heavy and unavoidable. She'd seen faces like his before, on magazine covers, in headlines, men whose lives expanded with decisions, while hers had narrowed to careful steps and small victories. She became acutely aware of her crutches again, the scuffed rubber tips, the frayed edge of her jacket sleeve. She shifted slightly. Daniel noticed. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "We don't usually eat out like this." "It's fine," Emma replied, though she wasn't entirely sure why. "I just wasn't expecting company." "Neither were we," he said. "Lily insisted on this place." "I like the plant," Willie said, gesturing proudly toward the tall green leaves beside Emma. It looked friendly. Emma smiled, but the earlier ease had dulled, not vanished, just reshaped. "So," Daniel said after a moment, "what do you do, Emma?" There it was, the question she both dreaded and resented. "I used to work in event coordination," she said. "Weddings, corporate things, big days for other people." "Used to," Daniel echoed gently. "I'm on leave," she said, indefinitely. He nodded. No judgment, no follow-up. He understood enough not to ask the wrong question. Lily leaned closer, resting her arms on the table. Does your leg hurt right now? Emma considered lying. It would have been easier, kinder. A little, she admitted, but not like before. What happened before? Lily asked, quieter now. Emma's fingers tightened around her spoon. The memory surfaced without permission. The screech of tires, the weightless second before impact, the world breaking into sound and force and then nothing. I was in an accident, she said. A car hit me. Daniel's expression changed, not dramatically, just subtly, like a shadow passing over water. I'm glad you're here, he said. The words were simple. They landed harder than sympathy ever had. Me too, Emma replied, surprising herself. The server returned, asking if they needed anything else. Daniel declined politely. Lily asked for a cookie. Emma shook her head, suddenly full. Minutes passed. The cafe thinned. Chairs emptied. Noise softened. Outside, the cloud moved on, and sunlight returned stronger than before. Emma felt time press gently against her ribs. She couldn't sit forever. The world outside would still be there when she stood. So would the pain. She reached for her crutches. Daniel noticed immediately. He stood, pulling her chair back. Not overbearing, just present. I can manage, she said automatically. I know, he replied. Still. She accepted the gesture, pushing herself up slowly. The familiar burn flared, sharp but manageable. She steadied herself, breath controlled, posture practiced. Lily hopped down from her chair. Bye, Emma, she said brightly. I hope your leg fixes faster. Emma smiled down at her. Thank you. I hope you get a dog someday. Lily gasped. Daddy, he agrees with me. Daniel smiled despite himself. She's persuasive, Emma hesitated, then looked at him. It was nice meeting you, she said, and meant it. Likewise, he replied. Take care. She turned toward the door, crutches clicking softly against the floor. Each step carried her farther from the table, from the warmth, from the pocket of connection she hadn't planned for. Just before she reached the door, Lily's voice called out. Emma! She turned. Lily ran over, stopping just short of the crutches. She held out a small, folded napkin. I drew Max, she said proudly, so you don't forget him. Emma's throat tightened. She took it carefully. Inside, in bright, uneven lines, was a dog with enormous ears and a crooked smile. I won't, Emma said, her voice thick. She left the cafe then, the bell ringing as the door closed behind her. Outside, the air was crisp, bright, unforgiving in its clarity. She paused on the sidewalk, letting the world recalibrate around her. She told herself it had been nothing, just lunch, just a conversation, just a little girl who liked dogs. But as she moved away, the napkin tucked safely into her pocket, she couldn't shake the feeling that something in her life had shifted, quietly, irreversibly, and that Lily's question wasn't finished with her yet. Emma stood on the sidewalk longer than she meant to. Cars passed in slow waves, their reflections sliding across storefront windows. Somewhere behind her, the cafe door opened and closed again, the bell ringing for someone else, for another story that had nothing to do with her. She tightened her grip on the crutches, grounding herself in the familiar pressure, then finally moved. Each step away from the cafe felt heavier than the last. She told herself it was just the leg, muscles tiring, nerves misfiring, nothing more. But the truth followed her anyway, settling into her thoughts like a stubborn echo. Daniel, Lily, the way the world bent slightly around him without his permission, the way it didn't bend around her at all. By the time she reached her apartment building, the sky had shifted again. Afternoon light angled lower, warmer, brushing the brick walls with gold. She climbed the short ramp at the entrance, pausing at the top to catch her breath. Inside, the hallway smelled faintly of cleaning solution and old carpet. Home, if it could be called that. Her apartment was small, one room trying to be many things at once. Bed, couch, kitchenette, recovery zone. She shut the door behind her and leaned back against it for a moment, eyes closed, letting the quiet swallow her whole. She slid the crutches aside and carefully lowered herself onto the couch. Pain flared, sharp and bright, then settled into a dull throb. She exhaled slowly. Only then did she reach into her jacket pocket. The napkin was slightly crumpled now, softened by movement. She unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases. Max stared back at her, crooked, earnest, a child's idea of loyalty captured in uneven lines. Emma swallowed. She hadn't expected to cry. She hadn't cried in weeks, not since the night she'd finally accepted that healing wasn't linear, that progress didn't mean returning to who she had been before. But now, alone in the quiet, the tears came anyway, silent, unannounced, sliding down her cheeks as she stared at the drawing. It wasn't the dog. It was the kindness, the simplicity of being met without judgment, without calculation. A child's question that hadn't been about her crutches or her pain, but about what she liked, what mattered to her. She folded the napkin again and placed it on the small table beside her bed, next to the stack of medical papers and appointment reminders. It looked out of place there, brighter, softer. She told herself she wouldn't think about them again. She was wrong. The days that followed were stubbornly ordinary. Physical therapy in the mornings, slow exercises under fluorescent lights, encouraging nods from a therapist who measured success in degrees of movement and seconds of balance. Afternoons filled with job listings she wasn't ready to apply for, and emails she didn't have the energy to answer. Evenings spent icing her leg and watching city lights flicker on outside her window. But beneath it all, something hummed, a restlessness she hadn't felt before. She found herself replaying the cafe scene in fragments, Lily's voice, Daniel's careful pauses, the way he had stood without making a spectacle of it when she reached for her crutches, the way he had looked at her, not as a problem to solve, not as an inconvenience to work around, but as a person who deserved space. On the fourth day, her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. Unknown number. She stared at the screen until it stopped vibrating, then sighed when it immediately rang again. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Emma?" a man's voice asked. Her stomach tightened. "Yes? This is Daniel." Her heart skipped, sharp and sudden. "I hope I'm not calling at a bad time," he continued. "I wasn't sure if this number was still yours." Lily insisted I try. Emma sat up straighter despite herself. It's fine," she said. "How did you—" "The server," he said. "She remembered you. I hope that's okay." She hesitated. It should have bothered her. It didn't. "Yes," she said. "It's okay." There was a brief pause, like he was choosing his next words with care. "Lily wanted to know how your leg is." Emma glanced down at herself, at the brace resting against the couch. "It's improving," she said, slowly. "I'm glad," he replied. "She's been asking." Something warm spread through her chest. "That's kind of her." "She is persistent," he said, a smile audible in his voice. "Listen, I didn't call just to check in. I wanted to ask you something." Emma's breath caught without permission. "Yes?" "There's a small park near our place," he said. "Nothing fancy, just benches and trees. Lily likes to feed the birds there on Saturdays. She asked if you might want to join us. Only if you're comfortable, and if not, I understand." The world seemed to hold still around her. Lunch in peace had turned into an invitation she hadn't known how to want. "I don't," she began, then stopped. Old habits rose fast. Protect yourself. Don't impose. Don't reach for things that don't belong to you. Daniel didn't rush her. He waited. "I walk slowly," she said finally. "That's okay," he replied without missing a beat. "So do we." Silence stretched between them, gentle, unpressured. "Yes," Emma said. The word felt fragile, brave. "I'd like that." "Good," he said, relief softening his voice. "I'll text you the address." After the call ended, Emma sat there for a long time, phone still in her hand. Part of her wanted to panic. Part of her wanted to cancel before she could disappoint anyone. But a deeper part, quiet, newly awakened, felt something else entirely: anticipation. Saturday arrived wrapped in soft morning light. Emma dressed carefully, choosing clothes that felt like her. Comfortable, but intentional. She checked the straps on her brace, adjusted the grips on her crutches, then took a steadying breath before leaving. The park was smaller than she expected. Trees clustered close together, their leaves whispering overhead. A narrow path curved through the grass, benches scattered at intervals. She spotted them almost immediately. Lily sat on a bench, legs swinging, tossing crumbs to a group of pigeons with focused delight. Daniel stood nearby, hands in his pockets, watching her with the same quiet attentiveness Emma remembered. He noticed Emma first. He lifted a hand in greeting, his smile easy and unguarded. Lily followed his gaze and jumped up. "Emma!" she called, waving enthusiastically. Emma smiled despite herself. "Hi, Lily." She made her way toward them slowly, the path uneven beneath her feet. Daniel stepped closer, instinctively reaching out, then stopping himself. "I've got it," Emma said gently. "I know," he replied. They settled onto the bench together. Lily scooted closer, holding out a small paper bag. "Bird food," she explained. "You can help." Emma took a handful, tossing crumbs with careful aim. The birds fluttered closer, bold, hopeful. For a while, they sat like that, feeding birds, watching people pass, sharing the simple rhythm of a morning unburdened by expectation. "Do you ever get tired of people knowing who you are?" Emma asked suddenly, surprising herself. Daniel considered the question. "Yes," he said honestly, "but not for the reason most people think." "Why then?" "Because they stop seeing who I am now," he said. "They see what I represent." Emma nodded. She understood that more than he might realize. "And you?" he asked. "Do you get tired of people seeing only the crutches?" She exhaled slowly. "Every day." Their eyes met again, something deeper passing between them this time. Not curiosity, understanding. Lily leaned her head against Emma's arm. "Daddy says everyone has something that hurts," she said matter-of-factly. "Some things you can see, some things you can't." Emma smiled down at her. "Your daddy is wise. He reads a lot," Lily said proudly. They laughed softly, the sound blending with the rustle of leaves. Time moved differently in the park. Slower, kinder. When it was time to go, Emma felt it like a tug. She didn't want to leave, and that realization scared her more than she expected. "Same time next week?" Lily asked hopefully. Emma hesitated, then looked at Daniel. "If you'd like," he said. "Yes," Emma said. "I'd like." As they parted ways, Emma felt something settle inside her. Not certainty, not promises, but possibility. And as she walked home, crutches steady beneath her, she realized the ache in her leg felt different. Still there, but no longer the loudest thing she carried. No longer the loudest thing she carried. Emma felt that realization follow her all the way home. Not as a dramatic revelation, but as a quiet shift in weight, like redistributing a heavy bag on tired shoulders. The pain was still there, steady, familiar, but it no longer owned every thought. Something else shared the space now. Something lighter. The following weeks unfolded gently, without spectacle. Saturdays became anchors. The park, the bench beneath the same leaning tree. Birds that began to recognize Lily's careful hands and Emma's slower throws. Conversations that didn't circle pain or power, but drifted instead through ordinary things. Favorite books, childhood memories, the strange comfort of routine. Emma learned that Daniel cooked poorly, but earnestly. That Lily hated broccoli, but loved rainstorms. That Daniel's life, despite its reach and influence, was carved into small, private moments he guarded fiercely. Daniel learned that Emma was patient to a fault, that she noticed details others missed, that she spoke carefully not because she lacked confidence, but because she chose precision over noise. They never named what was happening. They didn't have to. One afternoon, as autumn pressed cool fingers into the air, Emma walked farther than she had in months. The path curved deeper into the park than usual, and she felt the strain in her leg almost immediately. She slowed, breath measured, pride rising to meet the challenge. Daniel noticed. "You don't have to prove anything," he said gently. "I know," she replied. "I just want to try." He nodded, falling into step beside her without crowding. Lily ran ahead, chasing leaves. When Emma reached the end of the path, she stopped. Not because she had to, because she could. She laughed then, breathless, bright, the sound catching her by surprise. Daniel smiled at it like it was something precious. That night, alone in her apartment, Emma removed her brace and stood without it for a few seconds longer than usual. The mirror reflected a woman, still healing, still marked by effort, but no longer defined by it. She sent Daniel a message without overthinking it. "I walked farther today." The reply came quickly. "I knew you would." Winter crept in quietly. The park changed. Leaves fell. Benches chilled. Lily wore gloves that swallowed her hands. Emma's progress slowed with the cold, frustration edging back in around the margins. One evening, after a particularly hard therapy session, Emma found herself outside Daniel's building without quite remembering how she'd decided to come. The lobby was warm and hushed. Security recognized Daniel's name instantly, ushering her upstairs with polite efficiency. Daniel opened the door himself. He took one look at her face and stepped aside without questions. They sat on the couch in silence at first. Lily slept in the next room, her soft breathing barely audible. The city glowed beyond the windows, distant, impersonal. "I hate days like this," Emma said finally, her voice breaking despite her efforts. "I know," Daniel replied. She stared at her hands. "I'm afraid this is as good as it gets." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "May I tell you something?" She nodded. "There was a year," he said slowly, "when everything I built almost collapsed. Not publicly, quietly, in rooms where no one would ever know how close it came to ending." He paused. "I learned then that fear doesn't mean you're failing. It means you care about what's on the other side." Emma swallowed. "And what was on the other side for you?" He looked at her. This, not the apartment, not the view. Her. The realization didn't crash over her. It settled, warm, steady. Spring returned eventually, as it always did. Emma walked without crutches for the first time on a bright morning filled with birdsong. Her steps were cautious, uneven, but hers. She cried openly this time, not from pain, but from release. Daniel stood nearby, hands clenched at his sides, as if holding himself still. Lily clapped. "You did it," she declared. Emma laughed through tears. "I did." Life didn't transform overnight. Emma didn't become fearless. Daniel didn't abandon his world. Lily didn't stop asking difficult questions. But something solid formed between them, built from patience, respect, and moments that didn't demand more than they could give. One evening, months later, they returned to the cafe. The same one. The bell rang too loud again. The tables were just as close. The potted plant still leaned toward the window. Emma walked in unaided. She chose the table this time. They sat, ordered, waited. Lily glanced at Emma's shirt, a new one, but still featuring a dog. "Max?" she asked. Emma smiled. "Always." Daniel reached across the table, tentative, offering his hand without assumption. Emma took it. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, lunch was quiet. And for the first time in a long while, peace didn't feel borrowed. It felt earned.